"You're an angel." There seemed no point in driving the whole way without stopping. It was the early hours. I'd already listened to the shipping forecast on the radio with the window rolled down, while a headache pressed behind my eyes and the road blurred at the edges. When the sign for the motorway services appeared, I took the off-ramp. The car park was pretty much dead. I parked near to the front doors, then jumped out, locking the car behind me, and headed towards the entrance. Inside, the contrast hit immediately. The harsh fluorescent lights, the hum from the vending machines, the empty stairwell echoing my footsteps. All the tables in the cafe were empty. It smelt of old fried food and sharp disinfectant. I bought a coffee from the tired-looking server and sat down to read the magazine I had picked up earlier in the day. I smoked back then, and a coffee and a cigarette were a perfect match. The flame made the tobacco crackle as I drew on it. The coffee was nice and strong. The magazine was interesting. I started to feel a little better than I had in the car. I didn't notice his approach. "Excuse me, mate, have you got a spare fag?" He stood there in full biker's leathers. They looked well worn, and the cuffs were beginning to fray. His face was flushed and sweaty, and he carried a low-grade aroma of sweat, old leather, and something faintly musty. Not foul, exactly, but noticeable. Riding a motorbike had always seemed too exposed and uncomfortable for my taste. I was never one to refuse, though it always felt like a liberty coming from a stranger. And who buys spare cigarettes? In any case, I agreed and held out the pack. He reached in, and that's when I saw it. He had a big toe where his thumb should be. As he rifled in the packet for a moment, I instantly felt unsettled by the idea of a toe touching the other cigarette. My stomach turned. Can you imagine someone sticking their foot out and grabbing a cigarette between their toes? It felt unsanitary. A faint scar at the joint explained it more clearly. His thumb must have been lost in an accident, and the only option was to amputate his toe as a replacement for an opposable thumb. That didn't quite add up, though. Losing a big toe would surely affect your balance, right? Is that what they do? I wasn't sure. Finally, he plucked one out, smiled and said, "You're an angel," before turning and walking to a table on the far side of the cafeteria. "You're an angel." The phrase hung oddly in the air. I was relieved he'd chosen to sit away from me. I felt blindsided by the exchange. I stared back at the page, but the words had stopped making sense. If it wasn't his toe, then whose was it? A donor? Do they do transplants like that? But then, why not give him a dead man's thumb instead? That can't be right. I risked a glance. He wasn't eating or drinking, just sitting there smoking, staring into space. When he caught my eye, he smiled again, slow and knowing. I looked back down at the magazine, wishing for a moment I hadn't looked over. The last thing I wanted was a conversation. I kept thinking about how the toe had looked attached to his hand, almost right at a glance. Then not at all. Too thick. The nail broad and yellowish. The skin slightly wrong in texture. Did he notice how people reacted? He hadn't seemed bothered. I stubbed out my cigarette, finished my coffee, and stood up. Better to get back on the road. My footsteps echoed again on the way out, and for a stupid moment, I imagined a second pair keeping time just behind me. Outside, the night air was colder now. I unlocked the car, got in, and started the engine. As I pulled away from the services and headed around to the on-ramp, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing, just empty tarmac, and the glow of the building shrinking behind me. Of course there was nothing. What if he was following? I shook my head and focused on the road. The on-ramp curved up ahead. There, near the barrier, a figure in dark leathers crouched beside a bike, fiddling with something. Was it him? The same build, the same rounded shoulders. My headlights swept over, and he vanished from view. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. In my head, a scene played out, uninvited and vivid. I look in the rear view. He is there in the back seat, smiling that same slow smile. The hand comes up. The toe flexes, thick and obscene, and forces its way into my mouth. Right at the corner, fish hooks me, pulling, stretching, the nail scraping against my teeth, while he just watches, calm, as if this were the most natural and inevitable thing in the world. You're an angel. A wave of nausea hit me. I gagged a little and had to swallow hard. Christ, what was wrong with me? Overtired, that's all. The mind can do crazy things when it's fried. The toe was just a toe. A medical thing. End of story. Still, I checked the mirrors again. Empty road behind me. The motorway stretched ahead, black and endless under the orange sodium lamps. I flexed my thumb against the wheel, pressing until the knuckle hurt. It felt normal. Of course it did. One more check. A single headlight not far behind.